All right, D-Ray Fits, we are back here, and today we are talking about the crazy situation with Boeing. I'm sure, hopefully, a lot of you guys have heard it. I'm sure Boeing was able to suppress a lot of the news on this, but there have been crazy problems with Boeing planes, very a lot. In fact, just yesterday, something happened with like the fuselage with bad sensors on an Alaskan airline, which they get the 737s from Boeing, and they had to turn around. And that was like the 40th event that's happened like within such a small period of time. Boeing was known as one of the greatest American engineering, top of the line, safety first companies till they got merged with MacArthur Douglas, which they had a profits first motive instead of a safety first motive. And what's been going on now is essentially Boeing's been risking people's lives by not ensuring that the planes are actually met to legal safety standards. They're pretty much skipping steps to save money, right? With the history of all the time in capitalism and poor state regulation, and people have died. The 737 Maxes got ground. I'm sure you heard about those. The Ethiopian flight, everybody died. There was another one that everybody died on. I mean, they've killed so many people. The Alaska airline that had the door fly off, that just happened a couple months ago. And so there was this guy, John Barnett, who was testifying against Boeing. Okay, and so he was done testifying. He had done all his testifying, right? But then Boeing lawyers call him and ask him, "Can you stay one more day? We just have one more day deposition for you, if you don't mind staying one more day." He says, "Okay, I'll stay one more day in my hotel." And then they find him dead the next day. His friends and family have come out and said, "If I die, it is not suicide," okay, which I think is huge. Obviously, I don't think this guy committed suicide. The police originally reported as an apparent suicide, but I'm sure they're investigating it too. There are ways to make it look like people committed suicide with a gun when they did it against their will. So it's murder. And the question is whether Boeing would murder someone to... it was after he did pretty much all his depositions, so would they do it to send a message? Probably, right? They're part of the military-industrial complex. I'm sure they have their own secret police. I'm sure they have their own secret investigation group that goes around and checking people and ensuring their company security and secrets are of the utmost importance, past people's lives. And I truly believe that when it comes to, if they're willing to risk the lives of so many passengers on planes, why would they not kill one engineer for speaking up against them, right? That he did something against those passengers, did nothing, and they were still willing to risk their lives just to save a few bucks, right? Through stock buybacks and corporate control. Which this is a microcosm of such the problem of our form of capitalism, which is state-run capitalism, right? So it's really like it's reverse state-run capitalism. So because the donors and the people with the money own the actual politicians, they write the literal laws that then get passed in. So that's why what's happened since the 90s is slowly the lobbyists have gotten the congressmen to pass laws that say the government doesn't have to come in and check your safety standards. You just check your own safety standards, and if they're up to your part, then we'll assume that they're up to our part. And you see how that turns out, right? You see how that would obviously be a bias. They'd have to cut costs when their ultimate motive is to make more money, not to keep people safe on planes. Which it seemed like that was when it was under Boeing, but when they merged, and Boeing was actually the bigger company, but MacArthur Douglas, I just heard back in the day there were stories about how they really took over the culture of Boeing and made it profit first over good planes and good manufacturing and engineering, because they were known as one of our best manufacturing companies. They have ties to our military industrial complex, which I have my own problems with, but they are were a great company that could actually build great airplanes for civilian purposes, which we need. And now it comes out that they've had so this guy who was killed, either by suicide, maybe, or allegedly, or by murder, allegedly. In my opinion, it's murder. I don't know why. If he would tell his, friends and family, hey, if I do get murdered, it's suicide. Like, it's so obvious, and it's just so obvious, right? It's just blatant, and that shows the power that they think Boeing has, that they can just get away with it. And who knows, they probably can. They're a corporate entity. You always see what happens when they get in these tax issues, where they're breaking the law, stealing people's money. What happens? They get a fine, right? With OxyContin, right? A lot of people died. The company's got a fine, because you're not going to put a company in jail, right? And they can't go after the owners of the company, because that's just, those are the ruling class, right? You don't put the ruling class in jail. So they're like the aristocracy of old Europe, or the robber barons of the last century, and around the 1900s. I meant that shift, but it's, under my opinion, this guy was the safety manager for like 25-30 years of overseeing the 787s, their new biggest plane, and he had seen oversight of all the other planes though too. He was whistleblowing about how they used to take like old scrap parts and use those to speed up manufacturing until the new parts came in. He was just digging up all the shit on all the shit Boeing was doing to just make an extra buck, you know what I mean? Doing stock buybacks. Stock buybacks should so clearly be illegal, and if you don't know what those are, we could go on a different topic one day, but it's pretty much where they use the extra money they have, the profit, to just buy their own stock and inflate their own value, which literally creates inflation by definition, but no one ever talks about that, because companies are kind of allowed to do what they want in America, since they do run the laws. Really, they do. We live in a corporatocracy. I learned that word a long time ago, and we really do. It's not a democracy. They have so much influence that they run how things work. That's why we bailed them all the auto industry out during the crash of 2008, and that's why we bailed all the plane industries out during COVID, because we just had to. They were too big to fail, as they'd say, right? And so John Barnett was whistleblowing on these topics, and just happens to end up dead the day after they asked him to stay one more day, the lawyers of Boeing. And undoubtedly, this is like an Epstein thing. I think it's just so obvious, that not quite on that obvious of a level, but he definitely didn't kill himself. So the question is, how did he die? And he was known to not have any mental problems, right? He was doing interviews during the whole thing. The stress wasn't getting to him. He was having conversation with his family. The stress wasn't getting to him. And it was obvious he didn't kill himself, in my opinion. So if he died, how did he die? By far Occam's razors. He was killed by Boeing and their hitman or secret police or whatever, you know what I mean? So, I want to know your guys' opinion on that, definitely. Please share, subscribe, like, you guys already know. But then I also just want to share a little bit more on just like how this really just shows how broken American capitalism is. Like I said, it's like reverse capture it's fascism. Fascism is when a corporation or a group controls the government, right? And then through that control of the government, they determine the laws and everything. And maybe it's not fascism because it's not just one group, but all these corporations, they really do own our American politicians. And really, I don't see a way out of it right now because they're legally allowed to be bribed and they make so much money off it. You know, they wouldn't go into this and do this for so long. They used to be service before they go back to normal jobs and make decent money. But now they use this to make money, which can only mean one thing: corruption. I forget who it said, but they said, if you show me a rich politician, I'll show you a corrupt politician, which is so true. And we have too many of those. Nancy Pelosi is the perfect example. Who's Mitch McConnell? Perfect example, right? So, and those are the leaders of both of the parties. So, and you see how just that corporate capture allows them to make their own rules, and they get to do whatever they want to the point where they endanger people around the world because they sell probably the most planes, either them or Airbus. They sell the most planes because their need for greed, right? In our American system where profits come before everything, including lives. I'm not saying capitalism is the wrong way to do, but there are huge problems we have with capitalism. It assumes infinite growth. We can't assume infinite growth. We have a finite planet. It assumes no externalities, meaning you can burn all the fossil fuels and it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you don't have to pay for what happens to those fossil fuels. Well, it's like, no, when there's more hurricanes and stuff, it's gonna cause those extra effects down term. Those are externalities that you have to pay for, right? The way capitalism has changed. Even Adam Smith, who believed in laissez-faire capitalism, which is free market capitalism, which we do not have. We do not have free market capitalism, but we have state-run capitalism, like I just said, right? And the state-run capitalism is arguably much worse because even Adam Smith argued for regulation where it helped the majority of the people, not just the capitalists. Now we have the opposite. We have laws that just help the capitalists, that do not help the majority of the people, because the capitalists, again, are the ones with the influence. And it just shows the whole problem. Boeing can go ahead and manipulate the issue so to the point where they kill people, and then someone who dares to come up against them can't go to court, which is supposed to be our right as Americans to safely go to court and testify when things are illegal, which they were. And so he testifies to things that are illegal and can't stay safe because Boeing has secret police that are above the law that now are going to... I mean, who knows what's going to happen, but I guarantee no one goes to jail for this, right? I'm surprised if they just don't say it's suicide and leave it like that because it's Boeing, you know what I mean? They're too big of a company, too big to fail, too big to get caught murdering. That's how it works. All right, like I said, you guys, give me your inputs and subscribe, you guys. Peace out.